Hi everybody, it's Sandy Allnock and welcome to my video. Today I'm going to show you some techniques that my Copic markers have learned from Ranger. I colored this piece using the brand new Stampers Anonymous stamp set from Tim Holtz called Bird Crazy, and I colored it in Copic markers. Tim wasn't so certain that I actually had done that with Copics and without extra tricks. So a store owner, Kate from Absolutely Everything North of Boston, took this photo of the two of us, and I told Tim I was going to shoot a video to show exactly how I did this. So here we go. I'm upping the ante, however, not just doing the Copic marker coloring, but for those who don't Copic marker color, I'm going to show you how to do a crazy painted background, and then I'm going to take this background and mimic it with my Copic markers. So I started with Distress watercolor cardstock and Peacock Feathers ink, and I just watercolored a little bit of it on there just with a wet brush, and I heat set it in between each one of the steps just so I could stop the color from moving. I love when watercolor has sort of a hard edge to it in some places and soft edge in others, and kind of a mix of different types of lines and textures. So I'm going to kind of layer on some other colors and wet those, and etc. I've had some people ask, well, how do you get the applicator tools to not show the lines? This is an easy trick anybody can do. Look at how messy that is. I did it messy on purpose to show you that all you do is spray it. If you're using good watercolor cardstock, you can just put some water on it. All these inks react and you can get all kinds of very cool textures. I think I probably should have stopped it right there because I would have loved to try to mimic that little spray, but there you go. I did wipe that off and heat set that again, so I'm going to try more of this in the future, so keep an eye on my YouTube channel if you want to see more crazy backgrounds. And then I wanted to add some splatters, so I took some orange marmalade and just did some spatters on here, and then I dabbed them off with a little bit of a paper towel so that I'd have a range of orange colors on this, and just a little bit of an artistic flair to it. Picked up the ink and then tamped on a little bit of that so I could get a little bit of orange texture as well, and wanted to get that variety of lines. I had a different plan originally for this, for the yellow ink, and I decided to just stick it on the bottom and just put a little bit of that down there for the bird to stand on, because yellow is my favorite color, despite me having made Tim think that purple is, but the bird will go purple later, so there you go. Anyway, I am just going to start layering on colors. Some of the times when I'm trying to mimic something, I'll start with whatever color and then just go over it a couple times with different colors. The yellow I started out with is obviously way too bright, so I started trying to darken it. I did go a little bit too orange, I think, but that's okay. This whole piece is not going to be an exact replica. If I had spent a little more time on it, it probably could have been, but I was trying to do this pretty quickly, so it would fit in a normal sized, no more than 12 or 13 minute video. That's what I try to keep my videos at, which is why I speed things up for those who wonder, because if it goes longer than that, people abandon me and leave my video hanging out there. So I wanted to get two techniques, both the inked background and the Copic background, into one. So I'm going to try to move quickly through this. So I'm using some YG colors to match the peeled paint, and it's not quite bright enough, so I am going to go over that with more colors. Normally when I do this kind of a crazy painted background, I don't try to exactly copy anything. This is just an experiment in this particular case, just because I wanted to create that background first and then copy it. But normally I just copy textures. I look on paintings of people that I follow. I follow a lot of artists on Instagram and on their blogs and things. So I normally just look at their paintings and try to pick a little spot on it and see if I can figure out how to replicate that texture with marker strokes. And in this particular case, I'm just trying to create the whole background quite similar to what I did with the Distress inks. So I'm using some blue-green colors as well for that peacock feather look. And I'm going to be layering colors on and removing some color as well. So I'll I'll kind of balance out some of this. But this is just the first layer underneath of it all. Now, you may wonder why anybody would bother to go to all the trouble of doing this kind of a thing. There are a number of reasons, at least for me, and you can decide whether or not this is for you or not. Sometimes I'm somewhere where I don't have access to all of my inks and that sort of thing, and I still want to do a painted looking background. Other times I might be not really in the mood to get out my craft mat and all of those other tools that I'm going to need, and the inks and everything, and get my fingers dirty and all that. Maybe you're headed to church in a little while. You don't want ink all over your fingers, but you still want to get a section of your piece with a crazy background on it. So there's a lot of different reasons why I would use it, and a lot of it for me is just that I travel a lot, and while I'm traveling I want to still be able to create things like this. So there you have it. This is a YG03, which is a brighter green, so I'm laying that over top of the color I've already put down, and it's starting to really pull that color more toward the shade of the peeled paint. Now I'm going to start, since the background is kind of all in there and mushy now, I'm going to start adding detail on top and trying to mimic a little bit of that painted texture in that little spot that I'm working on right now. And I'm using a blue-green. These are both blue-green colors, so I'm mixing blue greens, yellow greens, different kinds of colors just to try to see what will come close to this. And this is not going to be an exact replica, as I said, but it's going to be pretty close. It's very much inspired by the piece on the left. Hard not to see that resemblance. One of the other reasons that one might want to do a painted Copic background rather than a distress background, on the one on the left, there's a couple of ways that you can color the bird after having done all of this watercolory distress background behind it. You can color a bird on something else and cut it out and glue him on, which I didn't really want to do, but you'll see my card at the end. I actually took some picked raspberry and peacock feathers ink and painted it right into the bird. It came out duller than I was hoping it would come out because I wanted him to be brighter. I wanted a really bright bird against this whole crazy background, but it worked. It worked somewhat. I put a lot of water in there and kept dabbing things off, trying to pull out that green and blue-green ink that's already in there, and to allow that to happen. But with the Copic markers, I don't have to worry about that because I can leave that bird just nice and clean. There are masking techniques and things that I could have used on the bird on the left, and maybe sometime I will show you that. But for now, this is just what I decided to do when I was trying to mimic this background. Alrighty, so I am adding more details to the edges of the Copic on the right and using a really light BG. And now I'm going in with a 0 marker. The 0 is the colorless blender, and it pushes color away from itself, so it's going to lighten things. And when you create things like a spot, where you can see there's a drip that has a darker shadow around the edges, you can just put a lot of the colorless blender on the inside, and it pushes that color, pardon me, and gathers it kind of at the edge of it. So it creates sort of these painted shapes, painted drops. So now I'm just going through and adding a couple little highlight spots here and there. And I'm no longer worried at this point about making it look exactly like the one on the left. I'm just trying to make some of these places that look more like marker end up looking more like paint. I'm just kind of focusing on trying to finish this piece off well. There was a little dark spot over in that right-hand corner that I really liked. And I'm just adding a little bit more of the dark blue-green and the 0 marker to try to emphasize that. And now I'm going over the whole thing, just adding sort of a random scribble. This is going to add texture to it. So since I'm using Neenah cardstock for the Copic marker part, it doesn't have the same texture as the watercolor cardstock on the left. So just adding a little bit of that using that 0 color Splendor marker. And then I decided to futz around a little bit with the yellow at the bottom, since yellow is my favorite color. then I called the background done. So I'm going to work on the bird real quickly here, and I'm going to layer some colors that I've learned from using my distress inks. That's one of the things that I said at the very beginning of this. I had discovered recently and really loved that Picked Raspberry works really great with peacock feathers to make purples. So I'm going to use pinks and blue greens and a little bit of purple. V04 is somewhat of an oaky purple, but there's not any really super great purples. There's FV2, which is a fluorescent violet, and it's okay, but it doesn't have any friends that it blends really perfectly with in the Copic marker collection. Maybe someday they'll come out with some really great purples. But the V04 is the only one that's a nice, bright, kind of intense purple. The others start getting a little bit on the muddy side, and I wanted something a little more bright and intense. So that's why I'm layering the red-violet colors along with blue-green colors. I'm going to let them mix as I just add one layer over top of another. I wanted the bird to be darker on the outside and then lighter toward the inside. So I'm letting the inside be the last part that I'm working on because I wanted it to stay lighter than the others. I originally thought about maybe making him have a white belly, but his eyes didn't really pop when he had a white belly. So I kept adding more color around it until I finished filling in his belly with the pinks. And now I'm going in with more of the BGs just to make them a little more purple. And you can just see how that color is starting to really mix beautifully. The dark BG makes for a darker purple color. And I just think it came out so dang cute. He really pops against that painted background. The sentiment set that I picked for this for you, this is from a Winnie and Walter set. And I think it came out really darling. Now for the one that I used the Distress inks for, I also made a card, and you can see the colors didn't come out as intense on the bird. It's a little more in the flavor of the background colors. So that's perfectly fine, but I like the other one a little bit more because it's just that much brighter. But they're both a lot of fun. It's really a matter of your preference for media. I wanted to show you also a peek at my art journal page, Je suis Charlie, with painted textures in the background. I did this one while I was traveling, so it happened on airplanes, etc. And I mimicked lots of painted textures in that one. Here are a couple other videos if you'd like to watch more of my creations. You're welcome to click on sandyallnart.com in the upper right to get to the blog post that has a list of all of the supplies, etc. used in this particular video. Thank you so much for watching and spending a few minutes with me. I will see you again next time. Take care and have a great day.